ಅಡಿದ್ಯಾ? Next one. Brahmagiri will be there, and then Musky will be there, and these two will continue into Kippanadi. I was testing your awareness. Kippanahalli. Okay, so Musky and Brahmagiri will continue here also, and it will continue in the Ashokan inscriptions also. Musky, Brahmagiri, and then Nettur, most importantly the major rock at it, Sannati, seated Ashoka, and then Brahmagiri. Why is it important? It is something which is present in 3 times. And Musky, why is it important in Ashokan inscriptions? Devanam Piyadasi. Okay, so who discovered the site? Bidon discovered the site. Brahmagiri, BL Rice, and then there is okay. So these are some important Ashokan sites, and then entering into Shatavahanas, once upon a time they were under Mauryas. So after the fall of Mauryan Empire, so Shatavahanas also got a considerable amount of autonomy. And yesterday we had discussed about the entire Shatavahana Empire. Who is the founder? Simukha. After Simukha, Kanha. What did Kanha do? Expand the empire, plus promoted Buddhism. And then Shatakarni I. What did he do? He further expanded the empire, and for that sake, what was something he used? Ashwamedha plus Rajasuya. And who wrote about these things? Nane got inscriptions. His wife Naganika. ನಾನು ಓದಿದ್ರಲ್ಲ ಆ ತರ ಇತ್ತು ಸರಿನಾ? ಏನಿಲ್ಲ, ಜಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಮೇಲೆ ಅಳಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ okay. So now are they just rituals? Are these just rituals? What is their importance? Polity as well. Polity as well. So what is their importance with regard to the polity? What is their importance with regard to the polity? Expansion, political conquest. Okay, so that is what they will indicate. See, nowadays the inference based questions are being asked. Okay, so what does the inscriptions indicate? Whatever inscriptions, what does they indicate? Shasanagalu, political claims, their donations, victories, okay, wars. So inscriptions usually there are some temple inscriptions which says, okay, he gave the donations, he gave the land for this. So these are some things that are majorly indicated by the inscriptions. And there are coins. What does the coins indicate? One, economy. Yesterday I told you also polity, economy, polity, and it will also indicate the religion. Okay. For example, in later times, during times of Kushanas especially, so they printed the images of different gods. Kushanas, they printed the images of different gods. Later also it continued. So that indicates which faith you follow. For example, Shatavahanas, stupas they printed on some coins. So what does it indicate? The religious tolerance. So that is how it works. Okay. So coins, they not only indicate the economic system, they also indicate polity. For example, Gautami Putra Shatakarni, what did he try to do? He superimposed his print on something that was already issued by Nahapana. Understood? So now you know the story. So it also indicates the politics and it also indicates the religion, their policy, everything. Okay. So see, nowadays inference based questions are very common in examination. If you just know that there were coins, there were inscriptions, that is not enough. So whenever you see some coins or inscriptions, that is an indicator of the mindset of the ruler. They tell what kind of ruler or what kind of kingdom it was. If any kingdom, if there is only the coins and on those coins, if only one religion or one deity is being projected, what does it mean? Religiously, they had a myopic view, very narrow view. They did not promote, they did not donate or promote other religions. That is what it indicates. Okay. So again, these are some things which you need to keep in your mind, because these inferences are now very common across the examinations. So last year they asked about, 2026 UPSC Prelims, they asked about one Pali coins question. Pali text and coins, Pali. Just like Prakrit, there is Pali language. So most of the Buddhist literature is written in Pali language. So they asked one question about the Pali language. So okay, Pali coins, Pali text, what does it indicate? So two statements, two inferences, then answer. So nowadays UPSC was asking multi-layered questions, not single layer question, multi-layered questions. So based on two statements or three statements they give, you have to find out the relationship, you have to find out the inference, then you have to come to the options. So before coming to options, you already encounter two layers of understanding. And nowadays the questions, they are testing the relationship. Statement 2 supports statement 1. Statement 2 extends the statement 1. Statement 3 contradicts statement 2. So they are testing the relationship. So if you just know one statement, not enough. Earlier, the option architecture or the question architecture and the options, it used to be like, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, 1, 3, 4, like that they used to frame. And if you eliminate one option, let's say there is one statement which is wrong, let's say this is statement 1, if you eliminate that, you already know the answer. So this was the option architecture in previous times. So with partial knowledge you could answer. Now what they will ask? They will not give this kind of options. They will ask only one, only two statements are correct, only three statements are correct, all statements are correct. So if you just know that statement 1 is wrong, you can eliminate only one option here. Earlier you could reach the answer itself. Now you can eliminate only one option. Understood? Now the partial knowledge will not help you much. You need to possess the complete knowledge. See, if you don't know also, it's fine. That will give you a clarity. I don't know anything about this. Let me skip this question. Let me go to my area. But the partial knowledge is always dangerous. It will provoke you to answer, and sometimes it will make you commit blunders. So, controlling yourself and know the partial answers, that's a tendency which you need to develop. That's a skill which you need to master. Understood? And it doesn't come at once. You need to practice. And after every test, you need to do the post-test analysis. And you need to possess the complete knowledge. See, if you don't know also, it's fine. Let me give you a clarity. I don't know anything about this. Let me skip this question. Let me go to this area. Let me skip this question. Let me go. Hello. Just 20 marks. Hello. Just 20 marks. Hello.
Hello. Hello. Hello. Hello. Hello. Hello. Hello.
what will happen if the emperor or the king loses the patience? What will happen if the emperor or the king becomes complacent? What will happen if emperor blindly trusts someone? He understood the entire art of how politics work. Okay. He also understood the significance of Ashwamedha. He also understood the significance of coins and inscriptions, how all these things work. And now he went to Kanchi. Grandfather told him, if you study in Kanchi, you can become a great scholar, and the highest job you can get is you can be the advisor to a king, the prime minister, the advisor, that kind of a thing. So you become the scholar. That is one of the highest positions you can decorate, and you can reach there if you study properly. So during your school, parents used to tell, no? So if you get more marks in 10th standard, it is a turning point. Later 12th also they told the same thing. Graduation also they told the same thing. Now competitive exams also same thing. So grandfather was assuring him something of that kind. ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಓದಿದ್ರೆ ಏನಾದರೂ ಸಾಧನೆ ಮಾಡ್ತೀಯಾ. So now he also assumed that, and he was studying with his heart out. And one fine day, when the young boy, he was in Kanchi.
Hello, hello, hello.
Okay.
Hello.
ನಾನೇ ಮಾತಾಡಲಾ? ಓಕೆ. ಕೇಳಿಸ್ತಿದ್ಯಾ? ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ನಾಟ್ ಆಡಿಬಲ್ಲ. ಡಿಲೇ ಇದೆಯಾ? ಓಕೆ. Sure, sir. Okay. So one more revision for you. Okay, you will never forget Shatavahanas again. And okay, so now Shatavahana kings, as I gave you the code. So the Shakas were their rivals, you all know that. They defeated Shakas, therefore we can call them as Shakahari. Shatakarni, Gautami Putra invited Vasishti and Putras to perform Yagna. So this is the code. So S stands for Simukha, the founder, Kanha, who expanded the empire and also who promoted Buddhism, and a scholar poet, Shatakarni, again, who conducted Rajasuya, Ashwamedha, Nannegat inscription, everything. And then comes Halaraja, Gata Saptashati. He had a poet called as Gunadhya. Gunadhya wrote two important things, Bruhat Katha and Vadda Katha. So Vadda Katha will come later. Okay? When we discuss Gangas, Vadda Katha will come. Vadda means elders. The story of elders. Okay? Remember, Vadda means in ancient Kannada, elders. Big people. Understood? So if you remember this interpretation, there is a lot of things which you can deduce out of this. Okay? And in ancient Kannada, you should remember, Per means big. Okay? So Per means big. So later, I will show you a lot of words which are, let's say for example, now we say Hemmara for a big tree. Earlier they used to say Permara. Per means big. This has become this in recent times. That is ancient Kannada. So I'll tell you some of those words which you need to remember, and using those words, even if they give any technical term, see, usually KPSC sometimes they'll give the terms and they'll ask what is the meaning of it. Sometimes they will only define and say whether the statement is right or wrong. So there are some keywords which you need to grasp, and using those keywords you can deduce the meaning of it. As I told you, Sunka means tax. Everybody knows. Sunka means tax. And now there is a samasa where Per plus Sunka will become something called as Perjunka. Per plus Sunka, Perjunka. Means tax on big people, those who are in palace. It is called as, understood? Like that. So tax on big people, rich people, like that. So there are certain terms which you need to remember. Vadda means, again, elders. Elders, old people, senior citizens, like that. Learned ones. Dodoru antivala, atara. So there are certain words which you need to remember. And now coming back to the story. You know all these things. So Gautami Putra Shatakarni was someone who re-established the glory of Shatavahanas, and he destroyed Nahapana, the Satrap ruler, who had conquered his areas, his ports. And yesterday I told you about the ports of Shatavahanas also, Sopara, Kalyan and Bharuch. See, UPSC had asked about the port cities. Understood? So KPLC also can follow the same thing and ask the port cities. So you need to know ports. Okay? So Shatavahana ports, you already know it. And their inscriptions, you know it. And stupas, you know it. Nagarjuna Konda, Amaravati, Karle, Nasik, you already know it. So their administrative system, their inscriptions, their religious policies, everything we have deduced using this simple story. Okay? So now, after Gautami Putra Shatakarni, later there was Vasishti Putra Pulumavi. Surrounded by enemies in all direction, he could not know what to do. Therefore, he entered into matrimonial alliance with Shakas. So his alliance worked. Later, another Vasishti Putra tried the same model, but that alliance did not work with Rudradaman. And Rudradaman is important for us with regard to Girnar inscription, Junagadh. Girnar inscription, Junagadh. You know that. So there are inscriptions of 3 kings there. As I told you, Ashoka, Rudradaman, Guptas, Samudragupta. not Samudragupta, Gupta rulers. Three important kingdoms. Their inscriptions are there in Girnar. So it is a very important place. Just like I told you, Brahmagiri and Maski. So it is related to Mesolithic, Neolithic as well as Ashokan inscriptions. Like that, that site is very important. Okay. So there are certain sites like this, certain areas like this that will indicate the cultural continuation of culture. So Mesolithic to Neolithic, only few sites can transition because there was a big gap. Only few sites can have both sides of, both types of culture, Mesolithic and Neolithic. Understood? And Karnataka has some of them. So that's a unique thing. That's the reason we highlighted two things. And what is the inference? Cultural continuation is not so easy thing. Understood? So during transition, a lot of things will be lost. But there was continuation. Bhimbetka, there is continuation. That's the reason it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And Karnataka, in some sites, there are continuation. Therefore, please mention important topics. Watch yesterday's class. Okay. So, now, and last ruler was Yagnashti Shatakarni. He had ambitions of recovering, but the empire was beyond the damage. So, Shatavahanas ended. Okay. Later, there was rise of Guptas, Vagadakas, Ikshvakus, lot of small kingdoms that emerged out of Shatavahanas. Whereas, in Karnataka, the descendants of Shatavahanas, called as Chutu Shatavahanas, they continued to rule. Chutu Shatavahanas. They called themselves as Shatakarnis. Okay? So now, later, that area, which was ruled by Shatakarnis or Chutu Shatavahanas, it came under the influence of Pallavas. And yesterday we were telling a story, we were discussing a story, where a young boy from Talagunda came to meet his grandfather because he had lost his parents. He was staying with his grandfather. Grandfather got him educated. And later, for higher education, they wanted to send him to Kanchi. And what was the ambition? To make him a scholar. So grandfather told him, if you become a scholar, you will be the advisor to a big king. That's the biggest position which you can get. You can become a minister, a scholar, okay, Pandit kind of a thing. So he went to study. He was studying with his heart. Everything was going fine. Okay. He was inching towards becoming a great scholar. He was learning all Vedas, Upanishads, all these things. He was very good with regard to mathematics, very good, Tarka Shastra and all. But finally, one fine day, when he was in Kanchi, when he was going back from his Gurukula to his home, he was carrying the palm leaves, Talegaris, where he has written his assignments, his knowledge, everything. He was on the way. And while he was passing, suddenly a horseman will come and the horseman will kick him. So he was a Brahmin. So he was having this ponytail kind of a thing. Horseman will stop, kick him. And when this young guy fell down and he was collecting his palm leaves, the horseman further humiliated him. So, you Brahmin, so what are you doing here? And when he was kicked, this guy spoke a word in Kannada. Why are you doing this to me? Yak marta idare hige? So then that horseman was further instigated. Oh, you are from Karnataka, Kanchi, today. Okay. So further instigated. He mocked his Kannada origins. Okay. So, and grandfather came running, looking for his grandson. That warrior went away after kicking him, humiliating him in front of everyone. But this guy, he collected all his palm leaves. He sat there for some time. Grandfather came. Grandfather was trying to console him. But see, what concerned the grandfather was that he thought he was hurt and he will cry, he will complain, he will say like why it happened to me, what wrong did I do, all these things. But this guy was completely silent. He did not talk about it because there was something happening in his mind. he wanted a revenge. He was not there to complain, he wanted a revenge. So what he did, he told his grandfather, I don't want to become a scholar, I want to become a king. I want to become a king. These kind of nonsense kings, I don't want to serve them. I want to become a king. He went to the forests of Srishailam. Raised the tribal army, captured Srishailam, lot of areas, and ultimately he defeated Pallavas of Kanchi. When Skandavarman was the ruler, and Skandavarman was forced to accept the control of this young boy on the region south of river Malaprabha. On the region south of river Malaprabha. And this led to the birth of first native Kannada empire called as Kadambas. And this young guy, Mayura Sharma, later became Varma. Okay. So he was the founder of Kadamba dynasty. And what have I told you? Why Jayanti? This was the ancient name of Banavasi. Ancient name of Banavasi. Why Jayanti? Okay. So now Kadamba Empire was founded. There are a lot of stories, a lot of legends with regard to the formation of empire. So Kadambu is a tree, Kadamba is a tribe. Okay. So Mayura Varma was the son of Shiva, Parvati. Lot of legends are there. Let's not get into all those things. But this is something which is recorded by the historians also. So we'll believe in this version. So yesterday itself I told you, this will lead to something else. This is not an isolated story. And history can never be studied dynasty wise or in isolation. Okay, this dynasty, it's not like that. It's about cultural continuation, it's about political continuation, it's about a lot of things that are interrelated. Okay. See, later you can see the Kadamba taxation system inculcated by Chalukyas. Chalukyas follow very similar taxation system like Kadambas. Even their statecraft means like the division of empire. So for example, in India, we have a country, states, district, taluks, hoblis, like that. So whatever Kadambas organization was there, their administrative architecture was there. Later, Gangas as well as Chalukyas, they follow almost a similar model. And Gangas will come in today's class. I'll tell you about Gangas also. So they were contemporaries. Kadambas and Gangas were kind of contemporaries. And Kadambas, their empire will end soon. They will not survive for a long period of time. There are reasons which I'll tell you. But Gangas will survive for around 650 years. Both these kingdoms were almost born together. They were contemporaries. Gangas will survive for 650 years. Kadambas will not survive more than 250 years. There are reasons for this. And lot of inferences lies in these reasons. And that is what examiner might test you in the upcoming examinations. See, as per my expectation, they are not going to ask you who wrote this book, who was the poet in this empire, so who fought this war against whom, what was the treaty that was signed. These kind of questions are not probable. It might not come. Only in the very rare case scenario it might come. Apart from that, the questions will be based on inferences. Okay? They will be deeply inspired by the UPSC model. So that is the reason I am emphasizing on certain things, because they are the interconnections between the empires. So if you study things in isolation, you will forget it. You think, okay, Shatavahanas were there, after Shatavahanas there were two, and like if you don't know the interrelationship between them, if you don't know the continuation between them, then it will be very difficult for you to remember the things organically. That is the reason I am trying to bring it into a story format. So kindly follow it. Okay. So now he defeated Pallavas and he established Kadamba Empire. And Kadambas, who is the founder? Mayura Sharma. And Mayura, see now, he was a rebellion. He revolted against Pallavas of Kanchi. He founded an empire. But after founding the empire, see, he did not have the royal origins and all. Okay? So he had no experience, prior experience of seeing a king rule from a close quarters and all. See, if you are born in the royal family, no, you'll be used to all those politics. You know how administration works, everything. For Kadambas, especially for Mayura Varma, he was very new. So as soon as he became the king, there were a lot of problems. Ministers came to him. They told, sir, people are not paying the taxes. There is decline in the tax collection. Okay? Some village headsmen, they are not listening to our orders. Soldiers want horses. Areas in the frontier, in the border, they want autonomy. Brahmins are demanding the land grants. Temples want the funds, donations. So list of demands. Mayura was surprised, Guru, what is this? So far what he had done, it was the easier part. Having the army, destroy someone, win over something, and now comes the most difficult part. See, you have started a legacy, maintaining this legacy, giving the good administration, that is the most difficult part. See, winning election is not a big thing. After winning the election, setting your legacy, fulfilling your promises. Understood? So, make sure you have a long-term policy making agenda. That is what leaves long-lasting impressions. So, winning something is not very big. A lot of people have done it. Even a lot of invaders have won wars against Indian kings. For example, in 18th century, there will be Nadir Shah of Persia. There will be Ahmad Shah Abdali from Afghanistan. They also won wars against Indians. But were they able to establish the rule? Were they able to provide stable administration? No. Understood? That is how it works. Winning is not very important. After winning, what you did. So now, Mayura Varma is new to the statecraft. Is new to this governance part. So, he will organize the empire in a very beautiful way. Though he is new, he was a scholar, no? He had that knowledge of beautiful systems, how Mauryas worked, how Nandas worked. So, he had studied all those things. He had studied the Artha Shastra of Chanakya. So, he had the theory part. Now, we wanted to implement all of it. Understood? So, he divided the empire. Into many parts. At last, there is something called as gramas. And gramas will be headed by gramikas. Gramas means, you know, village. So above village, there will be Dashak Grama. In today's context, you can equate it to a Hobli. Above Dashak Grama, there is something called as Mahagrama. In today's context, you can equate it to a Taluk. And above Taluk, what is there today? Districts. Okay? And above district, what will be there? What will be there? That's all. Okay? And then, see, they call it as Mandala or Desha. Oh, sorry. That is their province. Okay? So, there will be Maha Amatyas, Maha Bojas, Maharathis, lot of administrators. Okay? So, now they'll also collect different types of taxes, which I'll let you know towards the end. See, with every empire, we'll understand the religious policy. What was their coin system? Coins and inscriptions. Okay? Religious policy, coins and inscriptions, architectures. We'll understand all these things because this is what will convey the mindset of the ruler, the political economic status, all these things. So yesterday I gave you the example of Aurangzeb. Remember? Akbar versus Aurangzeb, the comparison I gave you. So what does that indicate? religious tolerance, the religious policy, the economic policy. Okay, so all these things, they describe a lot of things. You can derive a lot of inferences from them. That is very important. And Mayura Sharma, he created something called as, he renovated a lake at a place called as Chandravalli, and that is mentioned in Chandravalli inscription. Chandravalli inscription. Okay. And then you can see his son Kangavarma, he came to power. After Mayura, it was his son Kangavarma. See, Mayura, he built the empire from scratch. He was surrounded by enemies. He was surrounded by enemies, especially Pallavas, Vakatakas. Surrounded by enemies in all directions. There were Gangas, Pallavas, their biggest enemies. In north, they were Vakatakas. So, there were a lot of problems. Lots and lots of problems. So, what he did, he could not fight with all of them. He lost the battles. He lost the battles. Okay? Many battles against Pallavas and also Vakatakas. Okay? Empire was alive. But their status declined very, very badly. Okay? So now, next, there will be son. Shanti Varma. See, we know him for only one reason. For his Talagunda inscription. Okay? So there, he will talk about Chutu Shata Karnis or Chutu Shata Vahanas and say that they were good rulers. So he'll mention about Chutu Shata Vahanas and say that they were good rulers. So we remember him for only one reason, not for any conquest or any other thing. So we'll keep him as an exception and out of picture for now. Okay? So he's known for only one inscription which mentions about Chutu Shata Vahanas, that is Shatakarnis. Okay? Who ruled that area, Vaijayanti area, before Kadamba Empire was founded. Fine? So after him, see, empire is facing a downfall. Shanti Varma's Shanti policies will not work. Enemies will not keep quiet. If enemies see that you are weak, what they will do? They'll attack and try to take advantage. Imagine, if India was not a nuclear country, do you think China would have kept quiet? So definitely no. So if you want to propagate peace, the first thing is you should be strong internally. So only if you are strong and you say, I want peace, everybody will respect it. If you are weak and say peace, nobody will respect it. Because a weak person saying peace, it means he's trying to cover up. So everybody knows that secret. So they are going to attack you. Shanti Varma told Shanti, but again, others were not ready to accept his peace offer because they knew Kadambas were weak now. So next comes a very important ruler called as Bhagirath. So there is a course regarding Karnataka history. You can refer to NammaKPSC material. You can watch these classes. So classes plus material. So material in itself sometimes might not be enough because there are hundreds of books available for literature or history, but just studying them will not ensure marks for you, because you will not be able to prioritize the points that are given there. You will not be able to derive the inferences. Understood? So when they say that there was in Indus Valley civilization, there were two parts in the city. So lower part and then citadel. What does it indicate? Class differentiation. There existed a poor class and a rich class. Class stratification was there. Understood? So, and in Indus Valley civilization, when you can see amulets, so when you see amulets, what does it indicate? There existed some sort of religious beliefs. And when you say, when you look at the fire altars in Kalibangan, you can say that there were some kind of sacrifices that were performed. We don't know which religion conclusively, but some sacrifices were there. And when you see the seal of Pashupati Mahadeva, okay, having tiger, buffalo, deer and rhino. You can see it was some kind of deity, some kind of god. So this will tell us, these seals, these amulets, this will tell us about their religious policies. And see, they had coins also. IVC had coins also. And coins of this civilization was discovered in Mesopotamia. Even they had a civilization. What does it indicate? There was a trade between them. And see, whenever two different countries are trading, there should be an exchange system, no? Value of rupee and dollar, is it same? Value of rupee and euro, is it same? Definitely no. So there should be some sort of uniformity in the currency system. So imagine, they were very advanced. They were well versed with regard to economy. Understood? So what was not found in their civilization? What was not found? Two important things that were not found in their civilization. Understood? So if they had horses, things would have been different. How it would have been different? Faster movement, warriors, army, cavalry, okay, it would have been there. Iron, swords, defensive system, bigger gates, forts, things would have been different. Okay, so see, whatever you read, try to have inference. Why it is there, why it is not there. If it is there, what does it indicate? Understood? So that part of thinking, whatever few seconds you spend on that part of thinking is going to benefit you immensely with regard to examination. See, there was drainage system in IVC. What does it indicate? Their city planning, their urban planning, their advancement, engineering things. Okay? And cities, you all know, there was grid pattern. What does it indicate? Advanced urban architecture. Their town planning. Understood? So, these are things that it conveys. See, today, in Bangalore only, if you open the new areas map, you cannot find this kind of like grid pattern and all. Understood? There will be dead ends. So this is something which does not have all those things. So in modern times,
In modern times, when we think we are like civilizationally, educationally very advanced, we cannot compare with them. They were much more advanced than us. Their planning models were much better than us. So that is what it tells us. Their urban planning was better. That is the reason, whatever the smart city scheme we have, that is inspired by IVC. Because their cities, it was smarter almost 5,000 years ago. So that is the inference you should draw. Okay? Just looking at the facts, trying to memorize it, will not help you in the examination. Look at the facts, try to understand what it is conveying. If you just look at Naneghat inscription and understand that he performed Ashwamedha, Shatakarni 1 performed Ashwamedha Yaga, that's of no use. What does this Ashwamedha Yaga indicate? You have to connect it. Is it just religion or is it related to politics? Okay? One simple image on a coin, sea and ship. What does it indicate? Maritime trade, ambitions of a ruler. Understood? So what is the importance of maritime trade? Without trade, decline in revenue. If there is decline in the flow of revenue, you cannot maintain the army. Politically, you will lose the control. What will it lead to? Decline in your empire itself. See, Yagnashri Shatakarni, what did he print? Sea and a ship. Something which you could not maintain. Something which you wanted to do. His ambition was printed there. Understood? That is very important. Fine? So, in history, things might seem they are not connected. But most of the things are connected. They tell a lot of stories. So if you try to understand those stories, what is the inference behind those things, then history will be very easy for you. Understood? Just try to find the interlinkages, things will be very simple for you. Okay? So now, Bhagiratha. What Bhagiratha tried to do was, he tried to recover. See, there is a story in Mahabharata, Ramayana and all about Bhagiratha. Bhagiratha was the one who brought river Ganga to earth. Something that seems next to impossible. And if it is done, it is called as Bhagiratha Prayatna. If you put immense efforts to do something impossible, that is called as Bhagiratha Prayatna. Here again, for Kadambas, it seemed like almost everything was lost. Okay? Who brought them back to life? Bhagiratha. Okay? He recaptured areas and infused life into the empire. Okay? He was a turning point. He was a turning point. And then, by now, what you have seen is, you have seen Mayura, you have seen Kangavarma, you have seen Bhagiratha, and all of them, what they were fighting? Wars. Wars in 3 directions. See, the Kadamba kings, they not only inherited the kingdom, they also inherited the rivalry, enmity. So wars had become inevitable for them. Okay? Kadambas inherited not only the kingdom, the position, the territory, but also the enmity or the rivalry. Rivalry with 3 important set of people. Pallavas of Kanchi, Vakatakas, and also Gangas. Now, this had become inevitable. And every war comes with loss of men, money, and material. It will lead to destructions. Wars come with destruction. It will lead to loss of soldiers, some commoners' life. You have to spend the precious resources on fighting the war, procuring weapons. Okay? And if you lose the war, you have to pay the fine, tribute to the winner. And there will be usage of a lot of material. To sustain your armies, you have to spend a lot of food grains. Okay? So, wars will always lead to destruction. Okay? That is the reason there is a saying, there was never a good war and there was never a bad peace. There was never a good war and never a bad peace. So you have to remember this. Wars was very bad for Kadambas. And it took them almost 3 generations to understand that. Wars are bad for us. Then comes a very great king who understood all this reality. Someone understood all these things finally. That continuous wars is not going to help us. So that great person was none other than one of the great kings of Kadambas, Kakusta Varma. So what he did, as soon as he became the king, he told his ministers to bring the map. Kings thought maybe he's preparing for another war. Now, when the map was brought to him, he identified his enemies. His empire was surrounded by all these people. If you look at the map of, if you look at Kadambas, Kadamba area was this. Kadamba area was this. And above Kadambas, there was Vakatakas. Even in this direction, Vakatakas was there. Here there was Guptas. Here there was Gangas. And this entire shaded region was Pallavas. Understood? Surrounded by enemies in all directions. So they had to fight for their existence. Now Kakutsavarman, he looked at the map and he did something special, something unique with regard to Kadambas. Matrimonial alliance with both Guptas and Gangas. Guptas, the overlords of north. Gangas is very important. See, Gangas is very important. Why? See, if Gangas, they are the buffer zone. They form the buffer zone between Kadambas and Pallavas. So, if Gangas are his friends, then you can easily prevent Pallava invasions. You can stop Pallavas in the borders itself. Understood? He identified his friends strategically, extended the hand of friendship through matrimonial alliances, and he forced matrimonial alliances with both Guptas, the overlords of north, and also Gangas, buffer. Understood? Maintaining buffer is very important. So, you can look at the problem between India and China today. Earlier there was Tibet as a buffer between India and China. After independence, we ignore the importance of Tibet. When two great powers come in face of each other, then conflict is bound to happen. If two great powers share the boundaries, conflict is bound to happen. But historically there was Tibet, which acted as a buffer between India and China. There were no conflicts. But after independence, especially in 1950s, when Chinese occupied Tibet, India kept quiet. So Chinese came up to the India's borders, and that is the reason, 1962 war. Even today, the border incursions. So, you know, the ongoing problems between India and China. What is the reason? Absence of buffer. So the importance of buffer, understanding it, it's one of the very important factor of statecraft. If you want to be an emperor, you need to know all these things. And Chanakya's Arthashastra talks about this, having a buffer state. Having a buffer state. And having that buffer as your friend is an added advantage. If there is a buffer between you and your enemy, it's fine. It will act as a wall. If that buffer is your enemy's friend, then again no advantage to you. But if that buffer is your friend and relative, added advantage to you. Because if you want to invade to Pallavas, if you want to capture Kanchi, buffer will come along with you, Gangas. If they try to come to attack you, Gangas will stop them. Hey, Nammor Guru Beda. So, that is the advantage. Kakutsavarman understood this perfectly. Because Gangas were lying at the conjecture. They were lying at the border between two great spheres of influence, Kadambas as well as Pallavas. Both rivals, Gangas were in between. That is the reason Gangas, they started with Kolar as capital. They started with Kolar as capital. Kolar was called as Kuvalala. Kuvalala. Later, it became Kolara. Pronunciation, ease of pronunciation. There is something called as in language, Mitavyaya Sakti. So we don't want to spend. So, like for example, Permara. We don't want to spend so much of efforts doing it. So what we'll do? Dodmara. Yemmara. Understood? Sharada. Sarda. Shale. Sale. Understood? So like that, that is called as Mitavyaya Sakti. We'll come to that because that will help you in understanding a lot of this phonetics. That will help you to understand a lot of taxation systems of Karnataka, especially the ancient kingdoms. We'll come to that. But remember, this is very important. Okay? Having Gangas at the conjuncture. And Gangas, see, initially Kolara was the capital. Kolara. So when their capital was Kolara, they were always in between Kadambas and Pallavas. So it became a zone of conflict, continuous war in their area. So if Kadambas want to push back Pallavas of Kanchi, they will go to Kolara. If Pallavas want to invade Kadambas, they will come through Kolara. Kolara became the zone of conflict. Therefore, they shifted the capital to Talakadu. Simple idea. They did that. Pragmatic thing. You can't change your neighbors. Understood? Therefore, what they did? They changed the capital. That's all. They changed the door. That's all. Understood? So, Munde Borodali did Mane Baglana, India Road Gakamutra. Daily Arkitara Nortarent. So, pragmatic things. Fine. So now he entered into matrimonial alliance. And why we remember Kakutsa Varman is because of his Almedi inscription. The first Kannada inscription. Almedi inscription. The first Kannada inscription. Okay? See, you have to remember that Kadambas, their administrative language was Sanskrit. Kadambas, Chandravalli inscription of Mayura and Talagunda inscription of Shantivarma. Both of them are in Sanskrit only. It is in Sanskrit. This is the first thing which was in Kannada. So this is a sign that Kannada was evolving as an administrative language. Okay? So evolution of Kannada, you can trace it here. Purvada Alagannada is something that is used here. Fine. And then what he wanted to ensure was, whenever there is war, whenever he goes to fight the war, he always has +1 on his sides. When he goes to north, Guptas will be with him. If he goes to south, Gangas will be with him. That is what he ensured. That is the pragmatism. And after him, again see, after every great ruler, sometimes there will be a dip. Sometimes there will be a dip. Especially after Gautami Putra, we saw Vasisti Putras. There was a dip. Understood? So now, after Kakutsa Varman, what happened was, there was internal feuds within Kadambas, that who is going to become the next king. So because of this infighting, their empire started becoming weakened. And lastly, there was one good king. His name was Ravi Varma. His name was Ravi Varma. And what he did was, he defeated Vakatakas in northeastern direction. But by then, Gangas and Pallavas, they were against him. they were against him. And when he defeated Vakatakas, he was very happy because he was able to expand his empire to the north. But by then, he clearly realized that when he started walking towards North Karnataka, he clearly realized that there was someone who was triggered by it. That is Kirti Varma of Chalukya Empire. What Kirti Varma did? He attacked Kadambas and he captured Banavasi. Later, some members of Kadamba family, they continued to rule the Revati Dvipa. Do you know what is Revati Dvipa? Goa. They continued to rule Goa. But their rule in Karnataka almost ended with this. See, why Kadamba rule ended was because they were not adaptable. They did not want to be ruled by someone else. They were not ready to be the feudatories of someone. ಬೇರೆಯವ್ರ ಕೈ ಕೆಳಗೆ ಸಾಮಂತರಾಗಿರ್ಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಇಷ್ಟ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ. They wanted to be the overlords. They wanted to be the bosses. Why Ganga survived was because when they looked at the bigger power, they understood I cannot fight against him, so let me accept my position. But Kadambas were not like it. Kadambas were not pragmatic in this regard. They were not adaptable. When a bigger force attacked them, they kept fighting. They did not accept the bigger force as a bigger force and compromise. They were not adaptable. That is the reason the empire ended soon. That is the reason why Ganga's empire continued for more than 600 years. Two contemporary empires, Kadambas and Gangas. First one ended soon. Second one continued for almost 650 years. The reason? First one always chose a path of conflict, was not adaptable, never want to be ruled by someone else. Gangas, adaptable, ready to be ruled by someone else. See, they worked under Kadambas, they worked under Pallavas, they worked under Chalukyas, and they even worked under Rashtrakutas. They saw 4 big empires of Karnataka rise and collapse. The one stagnant thing that was there in Karnataka, Gangas. During Kadambas also they were there. During Chalukyas also they were there. During in Tamil Nadu region, when Pallavas were reigning, they were there. When Rashtrakutas raised, they were there. They helped Rashtrakutas to defeat Cholas. As a revenge, there was Rajendra Chola. He attacked Gangavadi. He completely ended Ganga kingdom. 999 AD, end of Gangas. 1 year short of millennium. That's all. Okay. So this is something big about Gangas. See what you can infer. Why they continued for 650 years? Very few empire extend for such a huge time. Even the bigger Mauryas, almost 2.5-3 centuries. That's all. Kadambas, few years. Chalukyas, few centuries. Vijayanagara, few centuries. Whereas Gangas, around 650 years. Why? Adaptability. You need not fight every battle. You can choose your battles. So that is what Gangas adopted. And that is what you should also adopt in the examination. Not every question given there is your battle. Choose your battles. Choose your areas. There will be some questions which will be framed with the mindset that if you touch that, it is going to be wrong. You will not have any idea about it. Or you might have partial knowledge about it. But as I told you, the partial knowledge trick, that kind of option architecture is eliminated. See, it is not only through questions or the topics that is asked, the question will become difficult. The difficulty level of the question can be enhanced further by framing different types of options. Now what UPSC is trying? They are trying both. And what KPSC will try on you? They'll also try both. They'll make the questions difficult, interpretative, inferential, and they'll also make the options very difficult. They'll keep multiple layers to the questions. Understood? So, solve the questions, solve the test, and while reading, do not just try to memorize, whichever subject it is. Do not just try to memorize, try to connect it. Okay? Try to connect it. So, connect the fiscal policy to monetary policy, inflation, everything. See, monetary policy and inflation is already connected. So, you should understand the interrelationship. Okay, what will happen if there is if there is a fiscal stimulus? It is a part of expansionary or contractionary fiscal policy. So, you need to keep on thinking, okay, when it will be called. So, what is twin deficit? What will happen? What is the interrelationship between them? Okay? So, you should keep on thinking. So, we just memorize, okay, fiscal stimulus is this, fiscal deficit is equal to total expenditure, total minus total receipt, except borrowings. No use. No use. Understood? If you just had the definitions, it's of no use. What does it indicate? Fiscal deficit, the seriousness. There are other forms of deficit also. Revenue deficit, budgetary deficit, primary deficit. Why fiscal deficit is given prominence? There has to be some reason, no? There has to be some reason. Fine? That will show the actual shortfall. Other things won't show you the actual shortfall. That is something that shows you the real lagging behind. Understood? So, that is the reason it is paid importance. So, while you are studying economic survey or budget, this is what you need to focus. While you encounter these terms, don't assume, okay, fiscal deficit of Karnataka is 2.95% and fiscal deficit of India, Fiscal Responsibility and Budgetary Management Act, it should be less than 3%. Don't just read that. Why fiscal deficit is given so much prominence over other deficits? What is the inference? Why there is so much of importance for that? So, there is trade deficit, there is capital account deficit, but why current account deficit is given so much of importance? There should be some reason. Understood? So, you have to understand that. Why there is something called as headline inflation? Understood? So, what is the difference between headline and core? Why it is called as headline? You have to understand. Fine? So, without understanding these things, you will not be able to think faster in the examination hall. Okay? So, now, Ravi Verma was the last ruler, and what we have to understand after the end of all these things, you have to remember about 3 important inscriptions. What were the 3 important inscriptions? What were the 3 important inscriptions? Chandravalli, it is about the reconstruction of the lake. Talagunda, and then Halmidi. Okay? So, this is very important, and you can write the names of the kings associated with it also. Okay? Once you are done with it, so you also have to remember the types of taxation systems that existed. The types of taxation systems that existed. So, what were the types of taxes? The types of taxes were very simple. There was one tax. You will be surprised. Pannaya. Any idea what the tax is about? What the tax is about? I underlined. Pan leaves, Vilyadele. Okay, and then there was something called as Vaddaravula. I told you, Vaddaro means Hiriyaru, big people. In any kingdom, who are the big people? Royal family. Royal family. So this was something, the tax on royal family. Tax on royal family. There was something called as Kirukula. Tax something called as Kirukula. During British times, the farmers used to suffer Kirukula because of what? What is Kirukula? Creating problem to someone. Earlier it was taxation. Now Kirukula means creating problem for someone. Okay? So now, during British times, the Kirukula for farmers was for what? For sake of land revenue. So Kirukula is related to land revenue. And there is something called as, earlier I told you, Perjunka. Per means big. Sunka means taxation. So this was something that was levied on loads. Big loads and all. Movement, trade, if you are taking a bullock cart with lot of goods and all, levied on you. And there was something called as Bílkode. It is sales tax. Sales tax. Okay. Fine. This was their taxation system. And as I told, the similar taxation system will exist during Chalukya Empire. Okay, a very similar taxation system. Fine. And then you have to study about their architecture. So their architecture, it was called as Kadamba style. So there was step shaped shikaras. This is called as Kadamba Shikara. Small steps, it will lead to the Shikara top. It is called as Kadamba Shikara. And their temples, they are of square shaped. And pillars within the temple, again square shaped. They are all square shaped. They don't have much carvings and all, because carvings was not the tradition at that time. Okay, very lightly carved. Later, Hoysalas, you can know the level of carvings. Kadambas, very less carvings. Okay, Hoysalas, you can see different types of pillars, different shapes of pillars. Kadambas, most of the pillars were square shaped. Temples were square shaped. And pillars, as I told you, Kadamba Shikaras, step shaped. Okay, this is something. And there are some monuments. For example, in Banavasi, there is Madhukeshwara temple, and there is place called as Alasi. There is something called as Pranaveshwara. Kalleshwara. Okay. And then Hattikeshwara. Lot of temples were there. Pranaveshwara, Kalleshwara, Hattikeshwara. And then during their times, there were a lot of Jaina basadis. So, initially, Shaivism, Vaishnavism, and later they were tolerant towards Jainism also. So that showcases their religious tolerance. Religious tolerance. Okay. So this is something which you should know. About them. And whatever coins they had, they were their coins were called as Padmantakas. There was image of lotus or lion. Lion was their symbol. So just like there is 3 lions on coins in India, so their coins carried lion symbol. Again, their royal symbol was lion, Kadambas, therefore. Okay. So lion and lotus. They usually publish 2 types of coins, gold and copper. Gold and copper. And during their times, there were someone officials called as. There were 2 important officials called as Tantrapala. He is an officer responsible for external affairs, maintaining the relationship with the neighboring kingdoms, all these things. And there was one more official maintaining the internal affairs. Okay. It was called as, he was called as Manavergade. Manavergade. Okay. And there is one more very important detail. See, he entered into matrimonial alliance with Guptas, and during the times of Guptas, there were Navaratnas, remember? One of the Navaratna was Kalidasa. So Kalidasa visited Banavasi when Kakutsavarman was the king. Kalidasa visited Banavasi. Okay. So now we'll recap everything. And Yadma. So you can roughly say they'll start from around 350, go up to 550, around 200 years. That is the timeline. Okay. Okay. Mayura 345. That is the formation of their empire. Gangas 350. Mayura 345. Okay. Before that, in prati varshanu ನೆನ್ಪಿಟ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋಕ್ಕಾಗಲ್ಲ. So you can say like around some ADs, because they were fighting with Shakas. So starting from almost 100 AD, you can take that. Okay. So rough timelines you can remember, but exact timelines it will cause a lot of confusion for you. Okay. ನೀನು ಸಿಕ್ತಾನ ಆನ್ಸರು? ಯಾರೋ ಹೇಳ್ದೆ ಅವ್ನು ಬರ್ಕೊಂಬಿಟ್ಟ. Have you traveled in the metro? So whatever line we have, not this one, there is another line. Radhaji Nagar, it will go up to Tumkur Road, no? So there is one important stop called as Mahakavi Kuvempu Road. So before a great stop called as Srirampuram. Srirampuram is known for heritage. Fine. So it's a wonderful area. So before Mahakavi Kuvempu Road, there is something called as, after Mahakavi Kuvempu Road, there is something called as Srirampuram. But this is important. And see, like my students of modern India, they know one thing. My school has become a metro station. My primary school is not there. It was destroyed to build a metro station. And this is that metro station. So if you just remember this metro station, you know the answer. Because see, now, Mayura Varma or Sharma, whoever you want, Kanga Varma, and then Kakusta Varma, and then Ravi Varma. Okay, so fine. There are two minimal names, as I told you. After Kanga Varma, Bhagiratha will take the efforts to restore the empire. Okay, so after Kanga Varma, there will be Shanti Varma and then Bhagiratha, but they are not very significant. So we'll only stick to 4 important emperors. Kanga Varma, the successor of Mayura, Kakutsa Varma, the greatest among Kadambas after Mayura, and the last important ruler, Ravi Varma. Okay, so Ravi Varma faced with Kirti Varma of Chalukyas. They defeated them ultimately. Okay, so if you just remember this, you remember almost everything. So Mayura Varma, which inscription? Chandravalli. Kakutsa Varma, Halmidi. What is the importance of Halmidi? You already know. Okay, so also Kalidasa, matrimonial alliances. That is this that is the importance of him. Okay, so Kanga Varma, he started losing wars. Okay, so there is nothing much significant that was achieved by him. Overall, you need to know about the taxation systems, what was there on the coins, their architecture, their religious policy, their administrative system. And we have covered all of it. So, Shatavahanas, I gave you a simple code. Shakahari, Shatakarni, Gautami Putra, invited Vasishti Putras to do Yagna. Remember it? You are done. Paleolithic, I told you, Alka. Fine. Mesolithic, Bharat's Switzerland is Jammu and Kashmir. Very simple. And 2 sites will repeat in Neolithic as well as Ashokan inscriptions. Okay, so Maski and Brahmagiri. Brahmagiri is very important because of BL rice. Maski is important because of Bedon. Who deciphered? And Maski, what is the important thing? Devanam Piyadasi. And Sannati is the major rock edict. What is there? Seated image of Ashoka. And then there is Nittur in Ballari. Okay. So these are the important Ashokan inscription sites in Karnataka. So overall, this is what we need to know. So whatever we studied, we have condensed it into few sentences. So this is the way you should continue to remember. Okay. So now we will proceed to Gangas. We'll proceed to Gangas. Okay. See, with regard to Gangas, the founder, he has two names, Dadiga or Kongani Varma. The foundation happens around 350 AD. His capital was Kuvalala, also called as Kolara. Later, this capital was shifted to Talakadu by a person called as Harivarma, his successor. It is not very significant and nobody is going to ask you who shifted the capital. But still, for sake of class, I have to tell you, that's it. Okay. The next important ruler after Dadiga, see, they were also having conflict with Pallavas of Kanchi versus, and they were also having conflicts with Kadambas. So initially what they did, they became, firstly, they became the feudatories of Pallavas. They'll be the subordinates of Pallavas. Tell Guru, whatever you say, I'll do. Don't do anything to me. Adaptability. Okay. And later, they'll feel seated image of Buddha or Ashoka. Hey, yako hing chustira? I told Ashoka no. Okay. So later, first they were feudatories of Pallavas, and later what happened? As I told you, among Kadambas, there was Kakutsavarman. What did Kakutsavarman do? Matrimonial alliance. So now, what they did, they entered into matrimonial alliance with Kadambas during the times of whom? Kakutsavarman. And Kadambas will end. Kadambas will come to an end. Okay. So after the end of Kadambas, who were the successors? Who are the big powers in Karnataka? Chalukyas were the big powers. Now what happens? There was one ruler called as Sri Purusha. Again, he was more a kind of a scholar. And he wrote something called as Gaja Shastra. Okay. So their symbol was elephant. So he wrote something called as Gaja Shastra. And before him, there was one more person called as Shivamara. He wrote Gajastaka. Fine. And later I will tell you about one more king. He was very well known for riding elephants, taming elephants. Aane palaksadu antaralla. So he was known for taming elephants. So why so many gajas? Understood? That is the reason. And now Chalukyas became important. Chalukyas became important in Karnataka. And see, there was one serious situation. There was a king. After all of them, there was one very important king called as Avinita. Among Gangas, he was a very important king. So he became the emperor, he became the king when he was 2 years old. Okay? So 2 years, people will sleep in their mother's lap, but this person was throned. He was sitting on he was dissipating a lot of responsibilities. And 2-year-old king, can he rule? Can he take decisions? No. Obviously, we will be taking all the decisions, the ministers. Okay? It will be kind of absentee rule. So when ministers take decision, when queen mother take decisions, so obviously, it will damage the empire or build the empire? Damage the empire. Okay, there will be a lot of internal conflicts. So now, when there was 2-year king, all the feudatories, they revolted and they became independent. Because king can't fight. So they became independent. But Avinita, he saw all these things. Growing up, see, he was born and brought up on that seat only. So he observed everything, he learned everything. Okay? So finally, when he came to that mature age, what he did? He brought back all of them under control. So he is considered as one of the very good kings among Gangas. But the problem was, he had 2 sons. One is Durvinita, the elder son, and another one was an younger son. And Avinita, he was close to Pallavas. Okay? Now what happened? Avinita was dying, and Avinita was favoring his younger son. He wanted his younger son to be the king. So now what happened? Durvinita was the elder son. He had the ambitions. Naturally, that position belongs to him. But Durvinita, he was more. See, when younger son and father, when they were close to Pallavas, he had only one choice. To be close to whom? Chalukyas. Understood? Father and younger son chose Pallavas. So to become the king, he had to get the support of someone. He chose Chalukyas. And finally, what happened? There was war. Between them. And Durvinita won this war. And he became the king with the help of Chalukyas. As a result, what he did? He entered into matrimonial alliance with Chalukyas. So, he gave his daughter to a great Chalukya king called as second Pulakeshi. Pulakeshi the 2. Immadi Pulakeshi. Okay? So, he entered into matrimonial alliance. And these alliances continued. After this, they remained loyal to Chalukyas only. Because matrimonial alliance. So later, after Immadi Pulakeshi, see, the end of Immadi Pulakeshi was very bad. There was a Pallava ruler called as Narasimhavarman. He attacked Badami. Vatapi, he destroyed it, he burnt it down, and Pulakeshin's rule ended. Immadi Pulakeshi's rule ended. And who will come to throne after him? Who will become the next king? Who will become the next king after Pulakeshi? He'll be having a lot of challenges. Okay? He'll be definitely having a lot of challenges. Who is it? His son Vikramaditya. And his son Vikramaditya was the grandson of Durvinita also. He was grandson of Durvinita. Because he entered into matrimonial alliance with Pulakeshi, no? So he gave his daughter, Durvinita gave his daughter to second Pulakeshi, and due to that alliance, Durvinita's daughter plus Pulakeshi, there was Vikramaditya I. So his grandson became the Chalukya emperor. So definitely grandfather will be happy, no? Tata. Mamaga Raja Ada, that too for a big empire. So he'll be happy. So he continued the alliance. So this alliance continued till the end of Chalukyas. Till the end of Chalukyas, the alliance will continue. And at the end of Chalukyas, definitely there was, so after Durvinita, there was another good king called as Bhutuga II, or second Bhutuga. So what he did, you can find a transition now. All these kings, they were loyal to Chalukyas. And after Chalukyas, who were the next big empire in Karnataka? Rashtrakutas. So Bhutuga II shifted his alliance to Rashtrakutas. And he helped Rashtrakutas to fight against Cholas. To fight against Cholas. Okay? So then the last two kings, they are little important, not because of their achievements, but because of their minister. Marasimha and Rachamalla IV. They had a same prime minister plus commander-in-chief called as Chamundaraya. Why Chamundaraya is important? Because of Shravana Belagola. Okay? So, what is that hill known as? That hill where Bahubali is standing, what is it called as? Chandragiri Hills. And who was the main architect or sculptor in this process? There was a person called as Arishtanemi. Called as Arishtanemi. And again, see, Gangas, they are Hindus, Vedic religion. But they are patronizing which religion? Jainism. Again, religious tolerance. See, most of Karnataka kingdoms, they'll showcase religious tolerance. Later, even Chalukyas, in Badamis, there are different caves. One related to Shaivism, one related to Vaishnavism, and there is one cave related to Jainism. Tolerance. Tolerance. And see, there is the great inscription related to Immadi Pulakeshi, that he won against Harshavardhana. And you know where that inscription is there? Inside a temple called as Meguti temple. Inside a temple called as Meguti temple, there is Haivole inscription. Okay? That Meguti temple is a Jain temple. Meguti temple is a Jain temple. Because the poet who wrote that, Ravi Kirti, he was a Jain. So what does that indicate? Religious tolerance. Religious tolerance. And in front of this Meguti temple, there is one symbol. There is one symbol, one kalasha. one Kalasha. And that indicates synthesis of culture. North Indian culture, South Indian culture, mixing up. That is the reason Chalukyan architecture is also called as the mix of Nagara as well as Dravida style, Vesara style, Chalukyan style. It is also called as Karnataka Dravida, unique style of Dravida, Karnataka Dravida. Okay, the Ganga Yamuna Kalasa is there. That indicates the symbiosis or the synthesis of cultures. Like that, most of the kingdoms, starting from Kadambas, Gangas, most of the kingdoms of Karnatakas, they were all religiously tolerant, up to Vijayanagara. Okay, so if you look at the Indian history, there were some kings who were intolerant towards other religions. For example, there were Kanvas. So they did not tolerate Buddhism and Jainism. They purely propagated Vedic religion. They persecuted the other religions. But in Karnataka, there is no such thing. There are no kings with such narrow-minded views. Here we have the kings, the rulers with broad-mindedness. Okay, Gautami Putra Shatakarni to some extent is narrow-minded. So he'll try to impose the Varna system. He'll make sure that no intermarriages will happen. But apart from that, again, is from Shatavahanas, not from Karnataka. So they are also called as Andhra Jatis. Okay, so the Telugu origin. Okay, so in Karnataka, broad-minded. So even today, we accept everyone. Okay, so now after him, I told you about all these emperors, and there is some important things which you need to remember about them. Some architectures. So again, in Kolar, in Talakad, and at Nandi Hills, there is something called as Bhoganandishwara temple. So there are temples called as Arakeshwara, Pataleshwara in both these places. Both these places. Okay. So, sorry, not in Kolar, in a place called as Manyapura. A place called as Manyapura. And then in Manipura, there are two extra temples, Kapileshwara and Someshwara. And in Chandragiri Hills, you can also find a lot of Jain Vasadis. And Chamundaraya, he was not only a commander, he was also a scholar. He composed something called as Chamundaraya Purana. Chamundaraya Purana. Okay. And then their coins, they had two important images. One is elephant, another one is Bullige ಏನಂತಾರೋ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೂಬಳ್ಳಿ, creepers, ಹೂಬಳ್ಳಿ, flowery creepers. Okay. Their coins are two images. One is elephant, their royal symbol, and another one is flowery creepers, ಹೂಬಳ್ಳಿ. ಬಳ್ಳಿಗೆ ಏನಂತ ನಂಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇದನ್ನು ಬರೆದಿದ್ದೀನಿ, ನಿಮ್ಮ ಇಷ್ಟ. ಫೈನ್. ಸೊ ದಿಸ್ ಈಸ್ ಸಮಥಿಂಗ್. And then see, after 755 AD, their kingdom was called as Gangavadi, 96,000. Sannati Sahasra Gangavadi means 96,000 they called it as. Okay. And what you have to learn from Gangas is that adaptability. Adaptability. Fine. Fine. So now Ilma, yesterday was it posted in your group? Today also it will be posted, but still you can write it down, not an issue. See, what does he indicate is that earlier Chalukyas were the overlords in Karnataka region. They were the allies of Chalukyas. But who succeeded Chalukyas in Karnataka? Rashtrakutas. And when Rashtrakutas started dominating, they were smart. They adopted. Understood? There were multiple generations, 650 years. Durvinita had the matrimonial alliance. Maybe his son will also have the matrimonial alliance. But 4 or 5 generations later, that bonding will be lost. So Bhutuga, he entered into alliance with Rashtrakutas. Pragmatism, adaptability. See, Chalukyas were now not the dominant force. They did not stick to Chalukyas. They switched over to Rashtrakutas. And their prominence started declining. So what he did, he helped Rashtrakutas to fight against Cholas. They won the war also. Rashtrakutas were very happy for their help. They gave them some areas also. Enjoy. But Cholas, they remembered this. And Cholas, when they became stronger, when they recovered everything, they attacked and ended Gangas. 999 AD, Rajendra Chola. So there are last 2 kings who are significant not for their achievements but for the achievement of their commander and the prime minister. Marasimha II and Rachamalla IV. They are not very important. Who is important? Chamundaraya. Why? Scholar plus Bahubali. Shravana Belagola. For that sake he is important. So overall Ganga story, it will tell you one thing, that you have to be adaptable. Kadambas, not ready to bend, they perished. Gangas adapted. They accepted the overlords. They had no shame in it. They accepted their weakness. They had no shame in it. They accepted the reality. Therefore, they survived for around 650 years. And finally, there were no much efficient rulers. And Rajendra Chola completely annexed them, including Talakadu, Kolar, everything. And Ganga area of dominance, it is mostly South Karnataka. So there is something called as HMT belt. Hasna, Mandya, Tumkur, Kolar, Bengaluru. That was their area of influence. South Karnataka. That was under their area of influence. Okay. Sometimes they ruled some parts of Tamil Nadu also. Coimbatore, Salem, that also they ruled. That only for limited period. See, and you also have to remember, later among Pallavas, there will be a king, sorry, not among Pallavas, among Chalukyas, there will be a king called as Vikramaditya II. Eradane Vikramaditya. And he is very great because he will invade Kanchi thrice. He will invade Kanchi thrice. He will defeat Pallavas, invade Kanchi thrice. See, Pallavas, when they defeated Chalukyas, they burned down Badami. They destroyed Badami. But second Vikramaditya, what he will do is, he will visit the temples in Kanchi. He will put a small inscription there that I came here. He will not destroy. He will meet the scholars there. He'll go to the temples there. He'll understand the culture of that place. He does not destroy. And thrice he'll reach there. And do you know who helped him? Gangas. Gangas will help him. Because that alliance will be there, no? Matrimonial alliance. So Vikramaditya 1, Vinayaditya, Vijayaditya, and then Vikramaditya 2. That alliance continued between Chalukyas and Gangas. And later, this alliance will be gone. This alliance will be gone. So Gangas will adapt to whom? Rashtrakutas. And after Rashtrakutas, there will be Hoysalas. By that time, Gangas were not there. And Hoysalas, if you look at them, they ruled over those areas which were earlier ruled by Gangas. Talakadu, Someshwara temples. Remember? So, these areas will come under the control of Hoysalas. They will defeat Cholas. Understood? That is how the history continues. Cholas completely ended Gangas. Later there will be Hoysalas. They will defeat Cholas. The rivalry continues. Okay? So, this is how the history works. And now, see, there were some scholars, as I told you, Gajashtaka, Gajashastra, and Durvinita. Durvinita, he was a king who was also a poet. He was a scholar and poet. What he will do? He will translate Gunadyas, Vaddakatha, which was in Paishachi language, to Sanskrit, not Kannada. To Sanskrit, not Kannada. Okay? If the statement is there that he translated it to Kannada and all, don't accept it. Okay? So now, there is a simple code to remember. Simple code to remember this. And for that, you have to recall Karnataka state politics. Whatever is happening now. What is happening now? What happened? What was announced yesterday? Cabinet. It was expanded. And after how many days? Almost 2 months. Almost 2 months, full cabinet came into force. So, see, there is something called as, when something is delivered, when something happens, after lot of efforts, after taking lot of time, it is called as Gaja Prasava. In Kannada, it is called as Gaja Prasava. When something happens, after lot of time, lot of efforts, it is called as Gaja Prasava. So now, you just look at the Ganga kings. Who was the founder? Dadiga. What was his other name? Kongani Varma. Okay? And after him, there was one king, one big king, as I told you. He wrote a book. What was his name? Shivamara. Okay? Shivamara. And what did he write? He'll write Gajashtaka. We'll just keep it there. And now, when this cabinet was formed, this person had to convince the High Command. Okay? And High Command is consisting of okay, and who are they? 2 madams. So this is Mara 2. Marasimha, 2 madams. Sonia madam, Priyanka madam. And then, okay. So Marasimha, Rachamalla. Marasimha and Rachamalla. Marasimha 2 madams. Okay. Rachamalla 4. Marasimha 2. Fine. And then here, look at the different scenarios. Now, imagine he had expanded the cabinet without consulting them. He had expanded the cabinet without consulting them. Then he would be called as what? One who is not loyal to the High Command. So what does it make him? Durvinita. See, if you are not loyal to someone, if you are not like, if you don't have great gratitude, if you are not grateful to someone, you are called as what? Durvinita. And now, at the same time, if you are not loyal, or if you try to assert your independence, you will listen to them. At the same time, you will also try to do your own work. You want your followers also to be there. So, whatever High Command suggests, you are not accepting some of it. If you completely disobey, Durvinita. If you disobey some of it, Avinita. If you disobey everything, Durvinita. And see, Congress in India, which is the most resourceful state it has under their control? Karnataka. So, what are you to the High Command? Who will supply all the resources? Understood? That's all. And in meanwhile, there might be some demands, because there are a lot of aspirants. You cannot fulfill all the aspirations. There will be some devils who will try to haunt you, the unsatisfied souls. So you cannot make 135 members of your party as the minister. Only 30 seats are there. So those dissatisfied souls who cannot become ministers, they will try to haunt you. They will try to create trouble for you. Understood? So they will shift their loyalty to other party if you don't give them ministry. So Bhutuga signifies what? Shifting the loyalty from Chalukyas to Rashtrakutas. So they all belong to this party. They might shift to some other party if you don't fulfill their aspirations. Understood? So these are Ganga rulers. Everyone summarized into one simple equation. Just remember the present scenario and don't take it as a political equation. So consider it as an imaginary situation. Fine. Just consider it as an imaginary situation. And what does this Sri Purusha write? Gaja Shastra. Okay. So this is all about Gangas. And Durvinita, translation. Okay. These two, per se they are not important. They are important because of Chamundaraya. Chamundaraya is important because of Bahubali. Okay. So founder, Dadiga or Kongani Varma. The next important ruler is Shivamara. And then it will come down to 3 important people, Avinita, Durvinita, Sri Purusha. Then it will end up with 2 other things, and before that there will be transition, shifting of loyalty, Bhutuga. Okay, some people who threaten you, minister position kottilla andre bere party ge hoytivi, they are Bhutugas. Okay, so this is all about Gangas. And with regard to Gangas, you have to remember their important temples, their coins, their administrative system, okay, their administrative system, all these things, their literary contributions, and that will summarize everything with regard to Gangas. Okay, so we have learned this. And their administrative system, it had no single shape. It had no single shape. Why? Because they were adaptable. When they were working with Pallavas, their administration worked suitable to Pallavas. When they were working with Kadambas, their administration followed Kadamba model. When they were working with Chalukyas, Chalukya model. Working with Rashtrakutas, Rashtrakuta model. There is no one model which they followed. Kadambas, overlords, never compromised, never not adaptable. One system, beginning till the end. Understood? So if you are true, if you are like adaptable, if you keep on changing your allies, friends, your overlords, you will also have to change according to the demands of the time. So that was the thing with Gangas. Okay, so their entire territory was called as Prantya. Prantya, province. Prantya, province. So below Prantya, what will be there? Below Prantya, what will be there? Below Prantya. Prantya means state. Below state, obviously there will be districts, Vishayas, and then there will be Gramas. So subunits, and subunits name will change according to who is your boss. That was the system. Districts, Vishayas. Vishayas was ruled by Vishayapatis. Vishayas were ruled by Vishayapatis. Okay. Vishaya, Bhoga. Below Vishaya, there will be Bhoga. Below Bhoga, there will be Grama. That was the idea. Okay. So this is all about Gangas. And tomorrow, we'll start with Chalukyas. Okay. So we'll complete Chalukyas and we'll enter into Rashtrakuta era. And once we are done with Rashtrakutas, Hoysalas, Vijayanagara, Bahmanis, all those things will try to wrap it up faster. Then we'll enter into modern Karnataka. So once we enter into modern Karnataka, we have a lot of important things to deal. So we'll dedicate at least 4 or 5 classes for modern Karnataka exclusively. Okay. So thank you all. See you all tomorrow.